Republican Senator Orrin of Utah. Obviously, you have been standing by very patiently. We appreciate it, Senator. You've watched this as we have as well. And I want to start off. We saw a lot of slapping of the backs. Congratulations. They're describing themselves as leaders, a historic moment. Even Senator Dodd saying history will judge harshly those who have been obstructionists. Your reaction, your response to this?
Well, nobody's been an obstructionist. All we wanted to do was participate in the process. Look, you go back in time, the Social Security Act was passed with an immense number of Republicans supporting it. Medicaid and Medicare were passed with a lot of Republicans supporting it. Civil rights were passed because, in large measure, because of Republicans. Here today, we were against this bill, and why? Well, first of all, the bill basically is going to bankrupt the country. They've taken $500 billion from Medicare, which is $38 trillion in unfunded liability. They're going to raise taxes $516 billion. They are $87 billion in new taxes. I mean, you just go on and on what this is going to do to our country.
And Senator, many Republicans, as yourself, have been stating that, making your case, making those arguments. But how do you counter those pictures? How do you counter those pictures of those Democrats who are now celebrating? They're shaking hands. They're holding a success rally there on the steps of the Capitol, and they look like a party that at least is getting something done.
Well, I think they deserve some credit for getting it done, as bad as it is, but it's going to wreck our country. I have to tell you, and people out there know that. That's why the majority of senior citizens who are the most likely to use health care in this country are basically against this. The majority of independents are against it. Naturally, almost all Republicans are against it. And even Democrats are concerned about it because of the high spending. There are also a number of unconstitutional provisions in here, like for the first time requiring, actually compelling people in this country to buy insurance.
But Senator Hatch, despite the fact that some of those groups are against it, there are others who support this bill, and the bottom line comes down to the vote that's going to take place between, obviously, when the Senate and the House conference and come up with legislation that the president will sign. What does it matter if you have those groups that are not on board, if it looks like this is going to go through?
Well, it matters because this is far from going through. I mean, so it passes tomorrow. That's a foregone conclusion. As you can see, they're celebrating today, even though the big vote comes tomorrow. And I suspect they'll win on that vote and get on a party line vote. But that's only the beginning of this process. I do not believe the House is going to take this bill. If it doesn't take this bill, it could disrupt an awful lot of what they're trying to do. Look, this bill, just look at what they've done. They've bought the votes.
Well, you mentioned that before. You said they bought the votes. You said before that they were buying people off. They're bribing them because of what they've gotten. But you actually had $50 million that was added to the bill, an amendment for abstinence-only education. How is that any different?
Well, I didn't do that for me. I did that for our children throughout our society because I believe...
Certainly you have a cause that you believe in, but there's a price tag with that, $50 million.
There's a difference between giving your vote for $600 million in Vermont, $500 million in Massachusetts, $300 million in Louisiana, $100 million in Nebraska.
Is it the price?
And by the way, the Nebraska thing is particularly grievous because they have been promised that their Medicaid charges will never be charged to the states, although all the other states have to pay it.
So, Senator, just to be clear, then, what is the difference? Is it a matter of the amount that you wanted more out of this bill in order to sign on to it?
Well, of course not, and I think that's what's wrong with Washington. This is what people complain about. Washington doing things that just get them reelected rather than doing things that over the long run are right. Now, there are things in this bill that Republicans can support. We could have gotten together and built on those things, and I think done a very good job of bringing people together and making it work. Republicans believe that basically the states themselves have to be taken into consideration, and if they be given some of the charge of this in accordance with their own demographics, we would be able to have more competition, more effective use of money, less costs, a way of accountability that you would not have just by having the almighty federal government control everything and run everything. Now look, like I say, this is just the Senate. It still has to go through the House and then has to come back to the Senate.
Let me ask you about this. The Elder Justice Act was put in. That was something that you fought for. This was grants to protect,
a lot of things.
Protect the elderly who are abused in nursing homes.
Right.
What do you tell those people if you successfully block this from being passed? That they're out of luck? I mean, what do you say to them?
Well, should I wreck the country so that I can get my elder justice bill passed? No. Should I wreck the country so that I can get $100 million from my state or $600 million in Vermont? No. No. Should I do what's right? Yes. And if the bill is good, and it is good, we'll get it passed sooner or later. And so why would we do that just because we want one thing or another thing? We should be thinking of what's best for our country, not what's best for the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. And look, when you look at it, I lived through this whole thing. I'm on the appropriate committees. The Help Committee, I listened to Senator Harkin say how they worked with us Republicans. Give me a break. We actually, every vote that was substantive in that committee, after they did the bill solely by themselves with the White House, every vote was voted down on a party line vote. All substantive votes. Same thing happened over in the House. The Pelosi bill was completely Democrat, no Republican input whatsoever. And then they come to the Senate, and Harry Reid puts together a bill between the two of those. Even the Democrats weren't involved in that bill.
You're going to go home to your constituents. Obviously, you're going to talk to them. The latest CNN poll shows that more than half of Americans think that the Republican leaders are moving the country in the wrong direction. When you come back, do you have a change of plans here, a different strategy to work with Democrats so you're not just the party that's on the sidelines?
Well, I don't think we're on the sidelines in any way, shape, or form, but I'll tell you that there has to be a desire by the Democrats to work with us. You know, they have 60 votes. They can do whatever they want, and there's an arrogance of power here that I've been talking about, that literally they think they can do whatever they want regardless of what's right or what's wrong. And look, I've made the point, if on a bill this important, involving 1/6 of the American economy, if you don't get 75 to 80 votes like we did on the CHIP bill, like we did on the Hatch-Waxman bill, like we did on Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, and others, then you know the bill's a lousy bill. If it's just a straight partisan bill that's this important, then you know it's a lousy bill. And I can tell you, this is one lousy bill. They can be very proud of what they've done, except that what they've done could wreck our country. And I think we've got to all stand up and start letting them hear from us.
All right. I expect that we'll hear more from you as well, many of the Republicans. So thank you so much, Senator Orrin Hatch, for joining us. Have a great holiday. Thank you.
You too. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.